Buongiorno a tutti, grazie per...
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being here. This conference is about the subject of Italy moving abroad. So Italy is on the move is the title of this conference, and we have here with us Francesco Boggio Ferraris, director of the Scuola Formazione Permanente of the Italia-China Foundation. Thank you for being here. Then we have Ettore Francesco Sequi, ambassador of Italy to Beijing, and Roberto Snaidero, president of FederlegnoArredo. I have the pleasure to introduce our guest speakers as we address the subject of the meeting in Rimini from an economic perspective. I just want to make a few remarks that are important to frame our meeting. Our economy is normally expressed in numbers. I remember 16 years ago when I started to work for the Sole 24 Ore newspaper, that's what I was told, that is, numbers tell about reality. Before, I was a journalist in the field. I would work on political news, and I was a reporter telling stories of different sorts, and that's the way I was used to work. But it is true that I learned that numbers tell us the reality, and the numbers tell us that in Italy we are a good for China. Just to recall the motto of the meeting in Rimini, in 2015 Italy's export to China reached 331 million euros, with an increase of 27.5% compared to 2014. And we have positive data also in the first quarter of 2016, so this trend continues to grow. But I also have to say that Italy is the first supplier of furniture in China. And this really shows that we are a good for them. Then some more figures about what the Chinese people love. Professional furniture increased by 253%, bedrooms increased by 78%, the living area increased by 58%, and couches and sofas increased by more than 40%, and the bathroom more than 60% in 2004 compared to 2014. And we have a growth trend of 384% from 2014 to 2015, reaching 381 million turnover. The forecast for 2020 are for a growth of 553 million euros. So these are data that were released by the research center of Federlegno. The other factor that we should take into account is this. We are now close to a very big event, which is an exceptional event. The Salone del Mobile exhibition will be in Shanghai from the 19th to the 21st of November. You know how the furniture sector has been playing a crucial role in Italy and abroad, in Russia, for example, in Moscow. We also had very positive experience in the United States. But consider that in the latest edition of this Salone del Mobile, we had 25,000 visitors from China in Milan. So this is an incredible number of visitors, and that's what I was referring to at the beginning, that is that Italy is a good for China. So we are good for China, and there's something more that underscores this aspect. And this is in the message of the Chinese representative of the consulate in Milan. He cannot be here because he is in Milan during the summer break, and he sent this message. I would like to take this important opportunity to express my greetings to the meeting for friendship amongst people. The diplomatic relations between China and Italy has been on for 46 years. The great success of Expo Milan 2015 contributed to strengthen and intensify the friendship between the two people and collaboration among different sectors, creating different concrete results. From the 19th to the 21st of November, in Shanghai, the first edition of the Salone del Mobile will be held in Shanghai, with 50 companies that testifies to the excellent results in the furniture sector in Italy. The city is ready, he says, to welcome them with enthusiasm. I'm sure that the Salone del Mobile in Shanghai will be a significant event for FederlegnoArredo and another point of reference for the relations between China and Italy. So I would really like to thank all the people cooperating to build up friendship between the two countries, and I wish all the best to the meeting and the Salone del Mobile. Wang Tong, General Counsel for China in Milan. This is one more example of how good Italy is for China. So, dear Roberto, now we have a question here. We've become a good for China, and this has been demonstrated by what I've mentioned before. But has China become a good for us? This is a real question. Is it good for us? Is it a good in the way we think of China and in the way we think of working with China? Personally, and frankly, I am a little bit diffident towards China. Fear a little bit. I'm a little bit worried. Sometimes I feel it, I perceive it as a danger. I immediately think of counterfeiting. Can it really be a good for us? Our young people, well, can our young people make a step towards that country instead of having an Erasmus exchange in Europe or in the United States? Is it worth for our young people to go there? So I will conclude here. We have here three different examples of the fact that China can be a good for Italy, a good for all of us, and we will hear this in their presentation. So I give the floor immediately to Francesco Boggio Ferraris. Francesco is the director of the Permanent Education School of Italia-China Foundation. His experience is extremely interesting in terms of what China is. So, Francesco, can you start answering the question I made before? Sure. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me and for the interesting inputs that I heard at the beginning of this conference. Before answering your question, I would like to say that this is an interesting, stimulating question, but it's also complex. We would need a full symposium to address this question. But actually, I must say that I truly love this country. I teach Chinese, and 16 years ago, I asked myself this question. I was a young university student, and the answer was yes. Besides the Erasmus, I want to try this opportunity. I was feeling a very strong attraction. At that time, it was a very small number of people having this kind of interest, but now we have many, many students asking the same question. We were a little bit doubtful, and the timing was different, globalization was different. Having said that, the love for China cannot be a blind love. That must be said very clearly. Every time I went to China and I've met many people. I still experience big difficulties, and I sometimes have crises because we are before an important culture that is as important and as ancient as ours, and one has to address it trying to open up and find a way to meet the other. So to answer your question, I think there can be two different answers. One is more related to the mind and one is more related to the heart. In terms of mind, if we wonder whether it is possible to go beyond this sense of worry and fear, well, the answer should be more pragmatic, but in terms of heart, we have to consider that we are before a complex culture, and if we take on this journey, we'll find out that this culture is so much close to our tradition and even closer to the idea of family as conceived in the Mediterranean culture than we could expect. So the answer I can provide as a foundation, Italia-China Foundation, I can provide numbers. So the pragmatic answer is that we really cannot afford to ignore China. That would be wrong. Over the last 40 years, since the end of the 70s, when China was very fast in an unprecedented way in shifting from a socialist orthodox country into the second biggest world economy, we were a little bit distracted in trying to understand that culture. We were looking to the West. We were more attracted by Western civilization and Anglo-Saxon civilization, and in this distraction we didn't realize that China has become a master of the world, so we cannot do that now. And if we consider the data from the Expo, this is a big discovery. Maybe not all of you know that 50% of our export, Italian exportation towards China, is towards this country. And this regards machineries and equipment. So our engineering factor, our industry is what we have exported to China, and that's half of our export today. That means that we have taken part in the industrialization of this country. If this country has become a master of manufacturing, there is a lot of Italy in this process. But today we have to face a different challenge, because this is what our friend from Federlegno knows. There is the need to shift to made in Italy products. We are here in Rimini, Fellini's city, and so we may think of the Dolce Vita idea. That is maybe what we can offer to the others, and we can offer it to people that need to go back to quality of life in megalopolis that is not very present now because the way they developed is so fast. There's now cities of 22, 23 million people, and Beijing has been growing by 8.2 million people over the last year, and over the last 10 years it increased by 6 million people. Every day in peak hours there's 5.6 million people driving to go back home or to go to work. We don't have to be worried about this, as it is such a big city and it is maybe difficult and tiresome to live there, because there's Chongqing, another city with 30 million people. And recently, in view of the Olympic Winter Games in 2022, Beijing is now getting ready, and there was some news this summer in which the municipality of Beijing asked its inhabitants to move to the outskirts, because the center is now not good for living there anymore. There's such a density that it's similar to animal style life. So the idea is to get to 2022 creating G, that is a place with 130 million people. That means Jin, Beijing, and Tianjin, the other big municipality near Beijing, and G, that is the province of Hebei, including these two municipalities. But moving the people towards the outskirts and moving the offices and the factories there to transform the center in a place where life can be lived in an easier way. So there we have a big role to play, and China in this sense is a good for us. And this falls in between in entrepreneurship and culture. We can't do anything on our own, because to build this opportunity that is offered by China to us, we need to get in tune with this world, because China is proud of itself, and it is a very strong subject, culturally speaking. So this relation must be built in a long-term way, and it is a complex way. Our culture now has changed into a culture that is always working on an emergency timing, but we don't have to rush, because our notion of time is different from our notion of time. Sorry to interrupt you, but before this conference, we were having a dialogue, and we mentioned the idea of an itinerary. So we all need, I mean, all of us who are interested in China, we all need to go through an itinerary that will lead us closer to that country. We need to learn to know each other, and we need to know more about their culture, their attitude, their behavior, and their need, as you said before, to have some time to get to know each other. There's people working in certain institutions that are there in office only 1 year. Well, that's not good, because relations must be maintained over time. So could you expand on this? Oh, yes, absolutely. I would like to go back in time to get to today's situation. We have fantastic examples. We as Italians, we have some masters from whom we can learn. Normally, Matteo Ricci and the Italian Jesuits, who in the 17th century did so much, are normally cited. But since we are talking to the friends of Federlegno, I always mention an anecdote. I always walk through Via Clerici to go to the offices we have in Milan, and I always have this strong feeling, because I go through Via Broletto and Via del Lauro in Milan. We are in the heart of Milan, and I walk through an area where in the 17th century there was a parish, and now there is a bank. And in this parish, Giuseppe Castiglioni was born. He became then a Jesuit missionary, and he was most of all a great painter. So Giuseppe Castiglione lived in China at the court of 3 emperors for 51 years, and he gave a great contribution to make Italian art and Chinese art meet. That's wonderful, and the paintings of Quadro Castiglione are in the museums of all the countries in the world, and are really incredible, because there are subjects of the Taoist culture that are drawn with the ability of the Renaissance in Italy. So what should we do today? We should understand, first of all, that the main features of the identity of our interlocutor are really critical. Our interlocutor has evolved a lot, and to simplify this line of reasoning, we may consider Taoism 2,500 years of culture preaching the culture of harmony. Harmony is a key word embedded in every single Chinese person. And then, within this attitude of Chinese people, there is also an approach of mercy and benevolence due to Confucius culture, who marked Chinese identity. And then we have Sun Tzu, because any historian would ask, why don't you refer to the art of war? So resilience, if we consider today's news for the acquisition of football teams, well, no. This is what people say. There is patience, benevolence, and harmony. Well, Chinese people are really strong. They are decisive. They're resolute. And there is another aspect that we hardly understand, because there is not even an Italian word to express it, that is guoqi, that might be translated as a complex of particular features of the nation, that is considering overall the latest 100 years of China. Since the end of the 18th century, Chinese people feel that they have been marginalized, and now they want very strongly to play a role, and they want to become protagonists. Thank you, Francesco.
We will go back on this, because this is going to be a debate. Well, Ambassador, you spent 1.5 years in Beijing. What is it that you find interesting in this country? Well, we could spend a whole day talking about this. I would like to say that this is the third time I'm here at the meeting, and it is always extremely interesting to be here. For me, it is an extraordinary experience. Thank you. So we were saying that figures always tell the truth. So I would also like to share with you a few figures, a few data. This morning I collected a few data. The development rate is 7%, $730 billion. That is to say, the GDP of Switzerland or of the Netherlands, 1/3 of that of Italy. So we said that it is the second economic power. It is the country that has more patents at the moment. As 1/3 of the purchase of luxury goods in the world are made by the Chinese. There are 600 million internautes, and 80% of the population makes their shopping from a smartphone or from a tablet. One of my favorite hobbies is when I have some minister visiting us, is to have a transfer with an authentication to my to make these money transfers. And I must say that every time I do this money transfer, which amount to €1, when we do this, our visitors are really struck by the simplicity of this kind of transactions. Some time ago, the Vice Secretary wanted to actually download this Chinese app, which is the like WhatsApp, and you can actually transfer money through this app on your mobile phone. So it is really an advanced country. Even though the population is aging, we have 420 million people between 0 and 25 years of age. So that is to say more than the population of the United States. And then we have 200 million between 15 and 20 years of age. So it's really an explosion, an emerging country that is experiencing at the moment. Some things that I have noticed in this year and a half have already been mentioned by Professor Boggio Ferrari. This is a very lively country. It is a vibrating country, and what really strikes me is that there are young people who are interested in technology, and they are also very friendly when you come to know them. But it is not so easy to have a relationship, to start a relationship, to get contact with the local young people. There are two dimensions in China. One is let's say, the formal, the official level, which is extremely rigid with a lot of behavioral rules. And then there is the interpersonal level. We have the Minister of Foreign Affairs who can speak Italian, is very friendly, but when he has to tell me something official, he calls an interpreter, even though he speaks perfect Italian, and tells me all the things he wants to tell me officially in Chinese. So, well, we can then say that we have to consider why China is good for us. Italy is in a privileged position, and I would like to share with you a few examples because not many know that we talked about Matteo. For instance, Matteo actually found out a system of transliteration of the Chinese ideograms that enables them on the net to send SMS and WhatsApp because they can write with Latin letters, and thanks to this system the world is translated into Chinese ideograms. And it was extremely interesting what you were saying before about Confucius, became known in Italy thanks to a Jesuit priest who translated the work of Confucius into Latin. So, Confucius was arrived, so to speak, in Europe thanks to an Italian. The finance minister of China, and we have to notice that in China it's not easy to get contact with ministers. Well, we met for dinner. There was a PowerPoint presentation that we made on the Italian Job Act, and we started a dialogue. There was a video conference because this is a transition period for the country concerning many different themes, as for instance the labor market. So they're really interested in knowing what we are doing in Italy, and I think this is really striking because it also shows the great potential in terms of cooperation between Italy and China. China thinks that Italians are the have or share a tradition which is not so different from the Chinese tradition. But we have to be cautious here because I noticed that the Chinese do not know Italy very well, and the Italians do not know China very well. It is surprising the acceleration in terms of modernization in China, but this is something that we do not grasp completely in Italy. We have still an idea of the Chinese people that is no longer reflects the truth. The Chinese look at the Italians as a country with a great history, but they do not really know what we did in the meantime. We are the second manufacturing country in Europe, the fifth in the world, and we are leaders in many sectors, as for instance in the sector of research, in particular with regard to physics. The director of the Institute for Theoretical Physics in China studied in Italy, and he speaks Italian. And according to the WHO, to the Bloomberg statistics, Italy is the second country in the world in terms of performance and efficiency of the public health system. So what did we do? We reflected on the mutual knowledge we need to develop with China. We reflected on how we can develop this mutual knowledge. We have a lot of competitors, and we needed to bear this in mind. We need to be there, so we needed to get organized so that we can be efficient. So since we were talking about a strategy, so to speak, we drew up, so to speak, a concept which is evocative, just like the way the Chinese like to look at things from an evocative point of view, something that has to be seen in the long term. So this concept that we have developed to promote Italian entrepreneurship in China is called the Road to 50. In 2020, so in about 5 years, Italy and China will be celebrating 50 years of diplomatic relations. And it is quite an important anniversary with big celebrations. But in the same year, the 13th five-year plan, which is fundamental for this transitional process in China, will come to an end. And this five-year plan includes all the aspects that are considered a priority by the Chinese government. And there are a lot of things we can do very well in Italy. For instance, manufacture. There is a Chinese program, China 2025, which is managed by Industry 4.0, which means more industry in the manufacturing sector. So if we want to continue being the second manufacturing country in Europe, we need to take this into account. Food safety, the quality of life, which is increasing. This is a very important aspect for the Chinese people. Then health services, green technologies. When I say to the Chinese that we are the country that has the highest energy efficiency in the world, they do not believe me. And this is our fault. We needed to tell them. We needed to show them. And when I say that, if they had the same energy efficiency we had, they would save $300 billion every year. Well, they can hardly believe it. I went to Chengdu, which is an average size city in China, and I recently met during the G20 meeting of finance ministers. I was told that they had to build an area that should host 6 million inhabitants. And he said he thought that maybe we could find a cooperation. So when I told him what we can do in different sectors, healthcare, food sector, and so on, he said, okay, let's do something together. But I'm really interested in knowing what you can do in other sectors, because we already started this dialogue with the French, the German, the British. So what I actually learned, and this is a message that I really want to pass on to everyone, our relationship with China is extremely important for all the reasons we already mentioned, and because it will help us grant more prosperity to our country. But this relationship can also help us modernize our country, because the Chinese are really advanced, and there's a lot, on the other hand, that we can do to stand the comparison with what the Chinese have in mind for the future. So there are already some good signals, but we need to work together every day. This is something that many people do not know. That is to say that we started a program, a cooperation program with China in a space sector, which is extremely difficult and complex. That is to say, the mapping of the moon. So we needed to get to know each other better. So these opportunities are really important, and it's to the benefit of us all. Thank you. So I'd say that the first answers are coming up, are emerging. And now, Roberto Snaidero, you have the floor. For years, he's always been convinced that China has always been a good for Italy. Good morning, everyone. Well, I've been traveling a lot back and forth from China, and during my first trips to Shenzhen, the first time I went there, I had to fly to Hong Kong. Then I took the train that took me to the Chinese border, and then there was a bridge to Shenzhen. It had about 150,000 inhabitants. I'm talking about the end of the 80s here. Today, this city has about 10 million inhabitants. I had to fly to Hong Kong because at the time that city did not have an airport. Now it has a huge airport. They are now planning to build a fairground of about 650,000 square meters. There was a press conference for the Salone del Mobile in Shanghai in November. When people go to China, they normally go to Shanghai, but we should move further on. We went to Dongguan in the south of China, and then we went to Chengdu. And in Chengdu, a city that counts about 8.5 million inhabitants, I wanted to tell you a story. The night before the press conference, someone asked me, where are you going tomorrow? Well, I'm going to Chengdu, but I do not speak Chinese. But then he said, I will help you. The night afterwards, we have dinner in Chengdu. Then the consul comes and takes us to an Italian restaurant, because I did tell them that I did not like Chinese food. So we went to this trattoria and we had spaghetti, and that's incredible. Why am I telling you this? Because we will have this event 19 to 21 of November. in representing the furniture sector, as Adriano was saying, we are the first exporters in the world in the furniture sector, but we wanted to also give a signal of what the Italian style is. So we will have furniture as the main element of this event, but there will also be a small part devoted to fashion, to automotive, and to food, just to make them understand what our country is. When you said before, is China good for us? I would like to go back to what Vitalini was saying yesterday. When you enter a kitchen, and you see a black kitchen, well, you say, well, it is quite dark and somber. If you have a light-colored kitchen, that's better. So it is good for consumers to have something different. In the furniture sector, we are a good for China. It is true that they counterfeit our products. That is a problem we have. Some of our colleagues saw their products counterfeited, and then now these products are sold back to us. China is the first world exporter, over $50 billion in exports. And the ambassador was saying that this is the country with the highest number of patents. But let's talk about this, because I don't know how many of these patents are real. Then there is another aspect that of labor philosophy. When we arrived on the Chinese market, we opened up a new company, Federlegno China, and we wanted to hire someone. I met him, and I asked him, when are you ready to start? And he said, well, in 2 months. It was September then. So I was waiting for him to start in December. He arrived in February. Why? Because there was the Chinese New Year's Eve, and it was, well, they think that it brings bad luck if you start a new job before the Chinese New Year's Eve. So China is a country that is completely different from any other market in the world. Our companies, our entrepreneurs need to understand what kind of market this is, and we have today many results. So, to conclude what you're saying, why do you think this is a good for us? Why do you still believe that China is a good for our companies and for Italy as a whole? What can China give us? Well, I believe that in 2020 there will be 100 million buyers in China, and we are the only ones who can actually provide them with what they want. And from the human point of view, all these years you spent working with China, what does that leave you? From the human point of view, I say that the Chinese economy is very young. They have a century-long culture, but not an economic culture, so to speak, even though they are now the second economic power in the world. So they do not have our own economic history. All the people I met there have always been very straightforward, and when they make a promise, they do honor their promises. So I have a positive judgment. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Snaidero. We have a few more minutes for just another very short round. Boggio Ferraris. This process, we have to start to get to know China better. What are the steps we can make, for instance, through education, through schools? The school you are directly at the moment is an open space for this kind of knowledge. And you were saying that it is attended by young diplomats as well as managers working in different companies and enterprises who need to know more and to need maybe also to learn the language. That's what it does.
Well, generally speaking, schools are a sort of workshop where the good practices in this respect are really being developed. And we don't boast too much our success, but Federlegno School and vocational training institutes do really have an experience in which we go and add Chinese literacy. So these young people are then part of the labor market and they have diplomas, they know China, and if they need to be marketing managers or media marketing managers of Italian groups, they already know how to manage this world, which we might be worried about, but they know already, and it's very easy for them. In our school, reverse program has been started since 3 years, so it's not just having Italian people being exposed to China, but having Chinese young people to explain what China is, and also Chinese entrepreneurs. So we have about 100 Chinese young people studying Italian language in our school, and there is this sort of tandem system where there is an exchange of experience, an exchange of ideas with Italian friends doing a similar performance in a reverse order. And this is also a tangible proof that this is possible to do. So we've quoted Taoism, Confucius, and all the difficulties in the market, but when things are made simple, well, it is very easy to overcome obstacles. So we keep asking this question, what can China be for us? How good can be China for us? I still want to mention this double idea of culture and industry. Recently, in a publication, an economist that everybody probably knows, that is Romeo Orlandi, wrote something about China. He said that now China offers us something that is maybe bitter because it is more aggressive, there are more costs for companies. When our president used to go to China years ago, the labor cost was very different. Now people have a double thought before deciding to establish a company there. However, it is a country where we must be. It is still good for us because there is no other country in the world with such a growth of internal potentials and such a vibrant market, internal market. There are so many people reaching to what is called in China Xiaokang, that is moderate well-being. So they have this medium-term view, and they coined this objective of the double 100. That is, after 100 years of the party being established, by 2021, all the Chinese population must reach moderate well-being. We know that there's 100 millions of people that do not have access to well-being. And the second 100 goes even further and reaches 2049. The Chinese people say that after 100 years from the foundation of the republic, the whole population in China shall reach a quality of life standard that is more than sufficient. No other country can state something like this. Thank you, Francesco. Now, Ambassador, after a year in China, what have you received from the Chinese people, from your relation with Chinese people that you really enjoyed? Well, I must say curiosity. We always mention the idea of knowing the other, and in that case, I am the other. I am in a privileged position, but I am the one who has to try to uh, explain himself. But I would like to go back to the experience of Federlegno, because I believe that we can find in this experience so many things, concrete things that we can explain very easily. Number one, there is one question that was missing here, and I'm saying this to the economist. So we have an economic system that is made of small and medium enterprises, and the Chinese market is huge. We are frightened. There is a book that was titled "Why China is Not for Everybody." What I see in Federlegno's experience is this. Well, I'm trying to grasp the Federlegno methodology. For sure, we are dealing with small and medium enterprises, but these small and medium enterprises found a way to attack this market with extraordinary results, and this can be beneficial also to other entrepreneurs. We've had recently a think tank meeting. We've gathered for the second time over a weekend to face our problems, and we asked the representative of Federlegni, a very skilled person, please tell us the recipe that you've managed to find. And I believe that a recipe lies in number one, organization. Secondly, this extraordinary way to combine culture with tradition and innovation that Chinese people really like. And Roberto may expand on this, because this is what we find in the products of these companies. So there's a tradition, culture, and also innovation, always considering the environment and new materials. And I believe that this will be really successful in the relationship with China. And there is something else that really raised my interest. I hope this is not copyrighted. Roberto Snaidero explained why Italy and Italian products, be it in the furniture sector or other sectors, is so much appreciated in China. Well, he said, well, look at these hands. These are the hands of the sons of the sons of the sons of Michelangelo and of Leonard. These hands have been used to do things very well for centuries. And in China, we've heard the numbers, the figures before, is more and more aware of not just quantity but also quality. This is fundamental, because they know if we can do better things than they can do. Since you've referred to patents, I must say that the situation is now improving, because even Chinese people are now able to produce more and more quality products. And so Chinese companies too now are interested in being safeguarded with respect to low profile Chinese companies that are their competitors. So the quality bar is rising more and more, and I believe that in this respect, the experience of Federlegno can be an extraordinary example for many, many other productive sectors. Thank you, Ambassador. And the very last comment from Roberto.
I wanted to add something to what the ambassador was saying about the patents. Since 2006, when we had the first meeting in Beijing on the problem of intellectual property, and I had the chance to meet the president of the intellectual property meeting 10 years ago. The situation was really, really serious. Every year I go to Shanghai, as I said before, where there is the Chinese furniture fair, and I meet the president of the Furniture Association in China, and I said, why can't you have laws to protect intellectual property? And this is exactly what happened, as the ambassador was saying. But we can also say something more about this positive aspect, this increase in the volume of experts. Well, I believe that the organization we created in the development of the Chinese market, I don't know whether you have actually visited our stand here. We have shown some aspects of our sector. Was in Tehran in July, and that is the country that doesn't have the same opening yet, but it is potentially a big market. At the same time, we are also working on the sub-Saharan African market, Mozambique, Kenya, Nigeria, and every time I go there, I always find Chinese people there. So I said, well, it's time for us to organize ourselves and do our part. So, well, 3 years ago, there was the Cavour ship that was sailing around Africa, and we in each port we met with architects and with experts, and so we saw this increase in the presence of African delegations, and we are actually starting partnerships. So this is the lesson I want to give to those who will come after me. So this means that the relationship with the others makes us better. So thank you. I'd like to thank our guests this morning, Francesco Boggio Ferraris, Ambassador Ettore Francesco Sequi, and Roberto Snaidero. Thank you. And well, I'd just like to remind you that the fundraising campaign of the meeting is still on. The meeting has relaunched this campaign after the success of last year. In order to go on building this place in the different pavilions, you will find different points where you can donate. Please donate only in the official fundraising points. Thank you for being with us this morning.